welcome to another episode of It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast. I'm very excited today because we have another show closer, season ender, special guest host, Tim from the Round 14 podcast. You closed out season 1 with us, First Blood. Now you're doing Rambo First Blood Part 2. I don't know how it worked out, but welcome to the show.
I'm excited. We may have to start calling me the closer.
We could have used a closer. Now that we've done it for 2 seasons in a row, people are going to expect this now for Rambo 3. I don't want to put you on the hook, but
it's funny how it works out. And I always think about what parts I want to cover. I mean, all the Rambo movies I love, right? But I'm honored to be here, and any part of it I can be in a discussion. I'm happy to be here.
Now, of course, you have a co-host and partner of your show, the Round 14 podcast, and due to scheduling conflicts of when I invited you on the show, the date that we're recording this, he's actually not at his home where he records from Florida. He went on a trip. Do you want to briefly talk about where he is and then maybe tease, without spoiling anything, because I want you to tease, there might be a big story for you guys to share on your show, so I want people to listen to that episode. So go ahead and explain what you can or want to here there, Tim.
Tony C., my amazing co-host and better-looking co-host, with that nice Florida tan. He is in California right now. He went out to see some of the sights and the experience with Stallone, which, as the time of this recording, happened last night. And he also went to Santa Monica to the Top Gun sites. On Round 14, we do Rocky, we do Rambo, but we do Top Gun, and we do all the movies from the 80s. And he was sending pictures that we put up on Round 14 from some of the sites from different the movies. So it's great.
So he went there with the idea and expectations. He paid for the experience with Sylvester Stallone experience that came out here to the United States for the first time, with the expectations and hopes that he was going to meet Sylvester Stallone. And I believe he'll have quite a story to tell about that, and I put in quotations mark maybe, tease experience. And I want people to listen to your episode when Tony comes back and talks to you. I just want to tell my listeners, hey, listen to the Round 14 podcast. They're part of the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network. And I actually should say this because there's people that listen to this show that aren't even aware of the other shows that we are part of. It's called the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network, because there's some people that listen to this on the standalone feed on Anchor. We are, a network of action shows, and the Round 14 podcast is a part of that network. So check out the link below. Tim and Tony do a great job of covering like Sly, Rocky, action films, like they said, Top Gun, just everything, horror films. You guys are a great addition to the network, and I'm really glad you guys took a chance of being a part of a ham and egger network like us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ryan. It's our pleasure to be part of the network. And, I've listened to some of the podcasts, and you got a Schwarzenegger one, a Van Damme one, and obviously the Rambo one, and movies that we grew up watching, loving, and be able to discuss this on the network, and to be part of the network, it's our pleasure for sure.
Now that you're on season 2, Rambo First Blood Part 2, we of course had you on for season 1. You shared your feelings about Stallone and Rambo and the series in general. But again, for our listeners, especially those who are maybe listening to you for the first time, why don't you give us a background of your love of Sly? And, of course, now particularly your love of the second film in the Rambo franchise series.
My first experience to anything Stallone was, I was 13 years old, 1985, and it was near Christmas, and Rocky IV had just come out. I was away, and I come home, and I lived on Wolf Island, which is near Kingston, Ontario. So I was getting ready to go on the boat, and I was kind of goofing around on the dock and you always see who comes off the boat if your friends are coming off. 4 or 5 of my friends were coming off the boat, and I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, we're going to a movie. Come on. And I said, okay. 13 years old. I didn't even care what movie they were seeing. I just wanted to go to the movies. So we went and I bought a ticket, and I said, what are we seeing? And they said, we're seeing Rocky IV. And I was like, what the hell is Rocky IV? So I came out of that theater, and the back of my head nearly blew right off. Introduced to this character, and then I learned that, this is a big action star, and he had made these Rambo movies. So this was, like I said, 1985, and First Blood had already come out, so we rented it, and I was completely hooked. And then when First Blood Part 2 came out, I was all in at this point. It's funny, First Blood is probably the better of the movies. obviously, of all the Rambo movies, but First Blood Part 2 just seems so over the top, pulling guns off of helicopters and out in the jungle and back in Vietnam, and it was almost like you're playing with the action figures yourself, but you're seeing it unfold on screen, and it just got bigger and more exciting and more explosions, and you didn't get that in the first movie, and from then on, whatever Sly did, I was infatuated with it. I couldn't wait to see the next movie and the next movie and rewatch these movies. So,
when did you first see Part 2? Do you remember how old you were? Was it in the theater, on TV, VHS?
Yeah, it was VHS. I'm not sure if it came out before Rocky 4. I know it came out at the same time.
Rocky 4 was the Christmas film, I think. So.
Right. So it came out in 85. And so, like I said, we had already seen Rocky 4, and then started watching the Rocky movies, and I saw First Blood. And the funny thing was, Ron, I got a buddy of mine, and maybe we're wired different, but we go to the movies. We sit and watch every single credit in the theater when people are leaving. I don't know why we did that. And now in the Marvel movies, maybe they owe me a little kickback because they always have a trailer at the end of the Marvel movies, but we would watch every single credit. And we did that with the VHS. We were so thankful we never had the internet to watch this unfold in front of us. And there was a trailer for First Blood Part 2 at the end of First Blood on the VHS we rented. So they played the trailer. It might have been 2 minutes long. And I looked at my buddy and said, oh my God, we've got to see this. The next weekend we rented First Blood Part 2, and I think we watched it 3 days in a row.
That's funny. Boy, if it wasn't for that trailer on the end of that VHS tape, you may never have seen this film.
No, that's right. I don't know. Like today, I still like a trailer here in Kingston. We had Jumbo Video and Blockbuster, and believe it or not, they used to rent an actual, at this point it was DVD, but it was a DVD full of movie trailers. You could rent it for like $1, and it had like 10 movie trailers on it. And they laughed at me because I would be the only guy in the store that would come in and rent that DVD trailer. So
that's actually quite funny. I love that. Yeah, days before the internet, now we just go on YouTube and you can watch every single trailer ever created. But I guess back then it was a novelty to see trailers for sure. Now I'm actually anti-trailer. I will watch the first 15 seconds of a trailer of a movie that I'm kind of curious about. Like literally the first 15, 20 seconds. I'm like, okay, yeah, I do want to see this. I do want to see this, and that's it. I don't want to see any more snippets or clips from the trailer, funny jokes. Like I know there's a new Indiana Jones trailer out, and I love Indiana Jones. I even like Crystal Skull because I just think they're just fun movies. I haven't watched 1 second of the trailer because I already know I'm going to watch it. Like I don't need to see any film footage. I'll just wait till the theater.
Well, they always said they put the best parts of the movie in the trailer, right? So I'm kind of at the opposite end. I'll watch the trailer over and over again and just get myself pumped up. And everybody's wired a little bit different, and I love a good trailer.
Yeah, I will watch a trailer after I see the movie just to see if I was correct about my decision. And usually I am. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't watch the trailer. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, well, you're got the honor or privilege, I don't know, to close up the last part of this film, but I mean, you miss all the action beats though. So is there any parts of the film you want to talk to that kind of stick to your mind? Any action beats or sequences because everything's done. I think the explosions are done. Well, there's one little action sequence coming up, but is there anything you want to talk about the film in general before we get to the closing sequences?
I think my absolute favorite part of this movie, and I don't think I'm alone on this one, they finished torching him against the mattress that they wired up to electrocute him, and they bring in the POW that he would try to rescue, and they put the knife on his cheek, and they said, put it in his eye, and they sit him down in front of the microphone, and they get him in contact, and he's speaking with Murdoch, and that whole scene, the lightning in the background, and he says, Murdoch, I'm coming for you. And it just begins. You're just frozen in that moment. And to me, that's my favorite part of the movie. He just goes all out, and he's a wrecking machine, and the chaos ensues. And then the other scene is the mud wall. When he comes out of the mud wall, my mouth was wide open. I was 13 years old, and I couldn't believe that this was unfolding in front of us. And I've always taken movies as entertainment and an escape. And when I was watching Rocky, or especially Rambo, I was just in awe. I was seeing on the screen, and I didn't even think how over the top things were. how outrageous they were. This soldier that's broken and they pushed over the edge and lucked the hell out. He's unstoppable.
First Blood Part 2, it should have been called First Blood Unleashed, because now we have Rambo off a leash, so to speak. He's got no more restrictions, no more orders. He can just take his full training and go unleashed. But yeah, those are great sequences. I think few people would have a hard time arguing with the Murdoch, I'm coming to get you, classic, squeezing that microphone. Of course, I love the Vietnam officer getting blown up with a bow and arrow. I love that Western showdown they have on the rock face there with the waterfall going. It's just a beautiful, beautiful scenery, and he just explodes like a meat pile. I love that. It's good stuff. Fun movie. Okay, so now we just finished the sequence of the helicopter showdown. Of course, Rambo has blown up the Russian leader with his big helicopter. I don't know if you listened to our last episode, Tim, where we talked about how they filmed that helicopter blowing up.
Unfortunately, I was away and I missed it, and I'm going to catch up with it, I promise.
How dare you? Boy, I'm going to have to... Anybody else want to co-host on the show? Not every one of my guest co-hosts even listen to my show, so I know you do, and so that's why I asked. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but for those who might be listening, and I'll just tell you, because I'd like to hear your thoughts right now live. So when we were dissecting last episode's co-host was Adrian. We're pausing the movie as we're talking about it. So we paused it on the sequence of the helicopter, the Russian helicopter that got blown up, and it was paused, and I've never paused it on that scene before. We could see so the helicopter's in the air, you can see it in the air. Underneath the helicopter were wires, cables pulled under tension, and we're like, that doesn't make sense. Why are these wires underneath the helicopter, and the helicopter's sitting on top of the wires? And then we realized, the image is flipped. It's an upside down helicopter being held by cables, and they blew it up. And so they blew up this model life-size helicopter for the bazooka through the window sequence. And that's how they got that really great helicopter being shown and then blowing up. So they hung a helicopter upside down, filled it with explosives, and that's how they filmed that. It was a shell. It was like a shell of a helicopter. You could tell it didn't have the quite same look, but for a quick little sequence, you're going to trick the human eye. So anyways, yeah, we discovered the magic of how they made that helicopter blow up in the sky. It was just hung up upside down, and they flipped the frame around and blew it up. I don't know if you ever caught that before.
I didn't, and now that I'm so curious to go back and watch that again and see that. But that just shows you the magic of the 80s, right? Like there was the CGI was. I'm not even sure this is right, but back in Star Wars in the 70s, and they were doing stuff that had never been done before, and they had to figure it out. Now they can make all that stuff on a computer, but in the 80s when they're blowing stuff up, some of these scenes were one shot, right? Like they're going to blow this up, and you've got one take because you can't blow stuff up over and over again. And really give them credit for making movies like this that still hold up today, in my opinion, as some of the greatest action movies ever made. I don't even know if I just compare movies to the 80s now, but my wife just says to me, how come you keep watching these movies over and over again? And I said, how can I not?
Very well said. And we've brought that up, as you know, throughout this series in particular, I think, regarding practical effects, practical stunts. There's something aesthetically pleasing about seeing these real humans in peril. Because now, like you're talking about the Marvel films, I mean, they're doing stunt work, don't get me wrong. They're still on cables, flying against, but they're landing on mattresses, and they're in the cables, and then everything is CGI'd out. The cables are CGI'd out. And so there was a sequence here when Rambo's in the helicopter, and he threw the big Russian guy outside the helicopter. That was a guy really falling out of the helicopter. We don't even know what he landed on, or didn't look like he was wearing a parachute. It's a real guy. He's falling out of these stunts, and these are real humans falling out of in the air, and you can't CGI that back in 85. And it doesn't age. Non-CGI doesn't age because it's just, that's it. These are people doing things. Whereas CGI can age to a degree. You're like, oh, that's an old special effect, or that's an old, computer graphic image. So there is something aesthetically pleasing about these practical effects. Like speaking of Indiana Jones, like look at the first three films. When they're doing all that stunt work, there's no CGI. It's just, stunt work, him going under the tank or the horse riding and running from the ball. Those are fun stunts to watch, and it's fun they never get old because non-CGI doesn't age.
It's so fitting that you're discussing that, and just around 14, we get off topic so fast. And like I said, we'll be talking about a movie that, either a horror movie or coming up with Christmas movies, and somehow we revert back to a Rambo movie. And when you go to a movie and you go to a bar afterwards, or you go to a coffee shop afterwards with your friends and you dissect the movie, what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it. And the good movies, like First Blood Part 2, we continue to do the lines, and the Rocky movies. And I have a really good friend of mine, and she's a fanatic Rocky fan, and we'll start doing lines, and we'll do half the movie back and forth, and we'd laugh and just having a great time. And that's why these movies are so special to me. And I think people would agree with that.
Totally agree. And Louise in our chat, and one of my faithful patrons, Louise says, I prefer practical effects all day over CGI.
Yeah, agreed.
And speaking of my Patreon, I want to just give it a quick plug before we dive into the last part of the film. I don't really talk about Patreon on the Rambo one. I usually talk about it on the Rocky one, but they're both connected. So if you want to support the show, you like the Rambo podcast, there's a couple ways you can support the Rambo podcast. One way is for as low as $1 a month. You can help support the feed that I pay for as part of the Last of the Action Heroes podcast feed for all these shows. I had to put up a hosting site for that, and helps pay for that data. For as low as $1 a month, you also get to watch my reaction and reviews of the Tulsa King. So I'm not saying you get to watch the whole episodes of Tulsa King for $1 a month, but if you can't afford Paramount Plus, or you're in a country where Paramount Plus is not available, if you join my Patreon and you don't mind my face above the show, and I talk here and there and give my review at the end of each episode, you can watch Tulsa King for as low as $1 a month on Patreon. One last thing on Patreon too is you get the full audio, video, raw, unedited recording of like myself and Tim right now. So even if we were having some technical difficulties or whatever it is, you get to watch everything, but it's released right away. So you get that video right away. You don't have to wait for the iTunes edit. Oh yeah, lastly, if you want to support the show, not financially, if you just leave me a review on iTunes, that'd be greatly appreciated. Because people, what they do is they scroll through, they look for shows, and they look at this show, the Rambo podcast, like, oh, this guy, no reviews. Nobody listens to this garbage. Now, it might be garbage, but I know I have people listening. So, you guys, even if you think the show's hot garbage, leave me a quick review or even a 5-star rating, because people see the ratings saying, hey, this guy might be okay. So, all those things help out the show. All right, you ready?
I'm ready. Just real quick before we do jump into it, I know, speaking of going all over the place, the other thing that I didn't mention was the very first of this movie when he's in prison and Troutman comes and tells him, trying to get Rambo to do it. One of my favorite scenes too is Rambo just says to him, do we get to win this time? And Troutman just says, this time is up to you. Start to finish, I love this movie.
Awesome. Yeah, you should have joined me for every episode. That great Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack.
It definitely wouldn't be as good without the soundtrack, eh?
The aerial footage of the helicopters, again, without the CGI, there's some just great helicopter stunt work in this film in general. You see Sly, of course Sly playing the Rambo character, in the left side of the cockpit, and that's all outside footage, is non-CGI footage. He's flying through the forest and everything. We know he's not flying the helicopter. Like, I know Sly might tell you he did. I love him, but he's a bit of a storyteller. There's a pilot to the right of him that we're not seeing that's off camera, but it's just really cool. Again, aesthetics. When you rewatch that sequence, when he's flying through the village and stuff, it's just, and he's going fast. Great camera work. And I think I've taken advantage of it over the years, but watching this in slow time, so to speak, you realize just how cool the aerial stunt work is in this film. Well, somebody mentioned here that they like your Rambo shirts. Donald said they love that you're wearing the Rambo shirt. So
yeah, put it up there. So this is one of my favorite scenes from, I'm going to leave a hint here for Ryan. Not that I don't appreciate closing out Rambo films, but spoiler alert, one of my favorite scenes is the shirt I'm wearing where, Troutman's getting interrogated, and the Russian commander says, "Who do you think this man is? God?" And he says, "No, God would have mercy. Rambo won't." When I found that was on a shirt, I'm telling you, this is my Sunday best right here.
Okay, well, if that's a hint, I don't know. Yeah, you don't have to be the show closer if you want to be a part of that sequence. I might be able to time it accordingly. It's always hard to, like I said before, because it's pretty easy to start the season and it's easy to close the season. But the in-between episodes, I'm never quite sure how long the discussions will be with my various co-hosts. Because I don't just say, we're going to do 20 minutes. We usually just do kind of whatever makes sense within an hour, hour and a half of recording, for start and stop time within the film. So yeah, if you want to do that sequence, maybe we could arrange that, and yeah, it's up to you.
Oh God, I want to do that sequence. I want to do the stick fighting sequence.
Oh boy,
I want to do I want to do everything, Ryan. I want it all. So the one thing I do love about watching the Long Road podcast is seeing the different guests you have on. And when Tony's here, we're both honored, and myself extremely happy to be a part of this.
Yeah, that is a really great thing. Thanks for saying that. When I started this, like I've got from my Rocky podcast, for those who are Sly fans again, who don't know, I do a Rocky podcast called One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast, where I have two set co-hosts. Every now and then I'll have a guest co-host if one of them is unable to be there. But what I wanted to do for the Rambo podcast, which I've done, is to have different voices with me, to hear different experiences and insights and from different people. And I think it's worked out really well. I appreciate you being here. Okay, so now we got a shot here of the office. Of course, Murdoch's pacing, he's sweating. Martin Cove there, his name is Erickson, the character. He's pretty chill, but they're kind of waiting to hear what's going on here. The helicopter's coming in, limping. It's limping in.
Calling Wolf Den, over. Lone Wolf calling Wolf Den, over. Wolf Den, this is Lone Wolf. Do you read? Wolf Den, this is Lone Wolf, over.
Yes, we hear you, Lone Wolf, over.
Prepare for emergency landing. Arriving with American POWs.
Rambo says, prepare for emergency landing, arriving with POWs, rightfully so. The American soldiers are like cheering, wow, and they stop because Murdoch has been a dick this whole time about this whole issue, and they kind of stop, and Murdoch realizes, I'm out of here. So he leaves. And with him leaving, now officially Colonel Troutman was kind of taken, his leadership role was taken away, but we're about to see that will change. He'll kick into high gear to like, hey, it's military time, let's go. We got an military aircraft coming in with an emergency landing. This is being in the Navy myself, when an aircraft is under distress, all hands on deck. Let's move. We got an aircraft coming in with personnel on board. So Murdoch's going to kick into high gear here.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. Distress, emergency vehicle, military, first responders, everything is so important. One of your own is distressed or trouble. It's all hands on deck. At this point, Murdoch's checked out, right? Rambo's coming whether he tells these people not to be prepared or not. He's just thinking of himself at this point. I don't even know he's aware of the situation, or he can't fathom it after Rambo told him on the mic, I'm coming for you. And you've got this broken soldier that now is flying in with a helicopter and machine guns. Troutman just steps up and says, look, we've got POWs coming. Everybody, let's go.
So here we go. So Troutman's going to kick it into high gear.
You heard. Prepare for arriving POWs. Let's fly.
I love how the helicopter's like sputtering as it comes in.
It's almost on the verge of being on fire. It's amazing.
Funny watching this now, like not slow time, but analyze it. Okay, land the helicopter already. They're grabbing extra 2 or 3 minutes of film time. Like we get it, the helicopter's under distress, but it's just kind of funny. It drags a little bit longer than I remember. Just land the thing. It's funny. You can see the smoke machine on the side of the helicopter pumping out the whatever that is, the dry ice or whatever that fake smoke is. It's just funny. I know we're analyzing, but you can actually see the little pump thing going poof, 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 pumping out the smoke.
When you break this down, like you can see these and see that, but if I go and put the Blu-ray on or DVD or VHS, because I'm not old, I don't even see any of that. I just see him in distress. I see the helicopter, like you're saying, just land the thing. And it's funny. I've seen this movie so many times and I don't see any of it. I just see Rambo trying to land it and grabbing that machine gun. And that's all I see. Maybe I've been trained that way. It just,
when you break down these films the way we do with the Rambo and Rocky, I always kind of give a disclaimer. I love these films. I love the old 5 of the Rambo films, old 6 or 8 of the Rocky films, however you want to call it. I enjoy them all, but when you break it down, you kind of have to, I don't say poke fun, but you gotta show the holes and fun, or else no one's gonna listen. If you just sit here and gush about every moment, people are gonna be like, all right, we get it, you like the film. Well, we love the film, but it's fun to kind of break down, the flubs or even the fun scenes or trivia but the things that quite don't make sense. That's what makes it fun. We all get it. It's a fun film when you don't stop it every 5 seconds, but yeah.
That's just it. And maybe 6 Degrees of Schwarzenegger would agree with me, who's on the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network, another amazing podcast, Commando. I love Commando. It's my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie of all time. And we cut it up like you wouldn't believe, whether the car is upside down on its side. When he puts it back, it's in perfect condition as he drives away. Like I said, it's my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and we cut it up as we're watching it. It's weird. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but we're one step out of doing that in the theater. People probably get mad at me sitting beside me. So
you make fun of the things you love. It's like, I'm a Rambo fan, so I get to make fun of it. But if you're not a Rambo fan and you're making fun of it, get out of my house. You're not allowed to do that. You got to be a fan before you can poke fun at it. And speaking of which, he's just landed the helicopter. Right away, Rambo's going to grab this M60 rifle on the side of the helicopter. And that might be a very disconcerting sequence of events. Can you imagine, like, this happens, you're seeing this live, and you see the guy grabbing a weapon. I'm just saying, he's a loose cannon. I wouldn't be surprised in real life if he might be stopped by some of the actual, like, ground soldiers or guards at the base. Dude, you can't just walk around with that. It's hard to say what his intent would be, because he looks pretty pissed off.
Yeah, he's checked out. Cole has been killed at this point. He's brought the POWs were, first of all, they left him. They abandoned him. Now he's bringing them back. He's coming for Murdoch. Everybody's focused on the POWs and the helicopter that's potentially going to blow up in their yard. I agree with you, but I'm not so sure that in the chaos, 1, he's going to grab an M60. 2, if anybody is willing to stop him, or if they even notice him, they have their blinders on maybe, but
good point. Bit of everything.
I don't know. I understand now with security in 2022, everything's on cameras. And back in 85, they probably didn't have. Well, first of all, there's nobody left in the room where all the computers are, because Troutman cleared it. So there's just chaos, and probably until you can't, you're, like you said, military personnel like you are, you have to be in the moment. I'm not so sure that even anybody notices that he's doing this.
Or you could argue that he's taking the ammunition away from the fire so it doesn't go off.
Once again, Ryan, you broke it down. Never crossed my mind. Watching this, and still to this day, I just watched it last night because I knew it was coming on. All I knew is he's going to pull that gun off, and he's going into, at this point, you don't know if he's going to kill Murdoch or what he's going to do with it. I just know that he's pissed.
Safety first for Rambo. He's taking away the ammunition from the fire. That's all it is. Safety first.
I love the bullets wrapped around the arm.
I know, it's funny.
It's unbelievable.
Nice little accessory.
Yeah.
Got Erickson about to say, glad you made it. And Traum was there to meet him as well. And Erickson, glad you made it. Look what Erickson's wearing. He's got like a necklace of bullet rounds around his neck with no shirt underneath his leather vest. Like, come on.
Gotta love the 80s.
I would have hit him too, just for looking like look at the way he does.
Yeah.
Glad you made it.
So he butted him in the nuts. He did a nut butt.
You know what? As far as I'm concerned, he got off lucky, right? At this point, he grabs the M60. He could have just shot him and kept on walking. I don't think Troutman would even blink an eye.
No, Troutman's not stopping Rambo right now. He knows better. He's in full war mode right now. So there's a sequence there where Troutman and Rambo look each other in the eye. No words are spoken. Rambo's like, I've got some unfinished business to take care of. Look, Troutman's like, I'm not going to stop you. Do what you got to do. And I don't think even Troutman knows what Rambo's might do here.
No words are spoken. At one point, when they look at each other, I believe he knows what's on Rambo's mind. But this look here, and then when you see him run in afterwards, I'm not even sure if he truly believes what he's going to do. He just knows that I'm not going to get in his way. It's on him again. But
yeah, it's a combination of the fact that Rambo's in Rambo mode, so Troutman, for his own safety, I'm not going to get in his way. And also, I don't disagree with his anger.
Well, that's just it, because, and you guys covered this on the previous episodes where he came back and he's lecturing them, and then they put him under arrest, and the whole thing went to shit, right? And what they were told and what unfolded and leaving him in Vietnam, and I think Troutman absolutely agrees, and I think that look, they know each other well enough, they know what each other are thinking, and he's not getting in the way. And I don't even think it was a safety concern on his part. He just figures, I'm going to let Rambo do what Rambo wants to do.
Look at that shot there.
This was part of the trailer that we saw for First Blood Part 2. And I know you said that, you watched 15, 20 seconds, and I don't know if that has changed since when you were younger. I understand why you do it. This was one of the main scenes of the trailer. As soon as we saw it, first of all, we rewound it and watched the trailer about 5 times that night. But this was one of the scenes, that picture right there, I was all in. I was like, I'm seeing this movie and I'm going to rent it or buy it or whatever. And I was completely hooked just after this scene.
That's awesome. So for our iTunes listeners who aren't watching this on YouTube, and I will say we got a few people that exclusively watch this podcast on the YouTube. I kind of recommend it a little bit, not to say you can't listen to this at home or while you're doing chores or driving your car, but you get to see exactly what Tim and I and my other co-hosts are talking about scene by scene, but we try to describe each scene. And again, people who listen to this have seen the movie like you 100 times, so they know exactly where we are. So Rambo's walked into the base of operations here, and there's that silhouette of smoke, and he's kind of silhouetted with the backlight, and he's, when the sheriff walks into the bar type thing, the swinging doors open, and he comes in, and yeah, let's see. So he's looking at the command center.
And I love how you can see the ammunition. I love how you can see the ammunition hanging from the machine gun, right? Now, it's not just the silhouette, but it's the silhouette of the ammunition, and he's going to do some serious shit here.
Sly's totally flexing.
It's just awesome. I've seen this movie so many times, and you know what's going to happen. And when the gun first goes off, and you see Murdoch jump. He probably thinks, I'm going to die. This is it. But just him sort of saying "F you" to the whole part of technology, and for leaving him, and for trying to cover up this whole thing. And then you see Troutman run in, and he's just unloading on everything, and there's nothing left. It's a pretty incredible scene.
Rambo's coming in. It's funny because 85 computers they're still kind of new, and they certainly weren't in everyone's home the way they are today. They're in our hands now. But computers were definitely in schools or homes, but they're still kind of not necessary. Not everyone needed them. This was the first time computers were doing thinking for people, and the idea here was that Rambo said at the very beginning, the mind is the best weapon. He was shown all those computers that was going to keep him safe, that was going to help him out, and he comes in here. These did nothing for me. In fact, this hindered the whole mission. If you let honor and integrity take care of the mission, we would have had these POWs back a lot sooner in a lot safer manner. And I love when the machine gun goes off, because that would be a very disconcerting sound. Like, you hear this M60 go off, and Murdoch's just in another room, obviously not behind where the shooting was. He was lucky, and I don't think Rambo cared where Murdoch might have been. But then also Troutman runs in because Troutman is like, oh, he's really shooting off. And so he's just making sure that at this point that maybe Murdoch isn't a mince meat or ground beef at this point. But then Troutman sees, okay, he's destroying government property. Dave in our chat said, now it's back to jail for destroying government property.
I mean, you make a fair point. You got to remember, Rambo went from training Vietnam. You see him when he comes back to the States, and then he's put in prison. He has nothing. He has no knowledge of these computers. They did nothing for me. They did everything to hinder me, and they left me in Vietnam, and they abandoned me. So obviously he's not a fan of any of this technology. So, well, when that gun goes off, you don't know if he's shooting through the walls or if he's got bullets left, he's coming with the gun. So at this point, what are you going to do? You're trapped. You've got this war, like the best there ever was, coming in after you. So
I love how he chucks the gun afterwards. He does that yell, ah! And he's still firing rounds up in the air, and then he throws the M60 against the desk. That's just a great, I don't know, he is just pissed. So he's now going to the next room where Murdoch is. Now, can you imagine the fear that Murdoch has at this moment? He's just heard all those rounds go off. He knows Rambo said, I'm coming to get you. And Rambo's here. Like, he's here in the room with you. He must be urinating right now.
Yeah, I'm not even sure at this point where if he was going to know Rambo's coming, and I don't want to be sensitive about this, but I'm surprised he didn't take his own life before this. He knows that Rambo's coming for him. He thinks, at this point, he's shooting at me. Now he's coming in here. In my mind, the only thing I would be thinking of is he's going to kill me. And that's the only thing that would cross my mind, and I'm not even sure he could be thinking of.
Yeah, Murdoch's going to say here, I don't make the orders. Now, it's funny that he brings that up, that he doesn't make the orders.
I don't make the orders. I take them just like you.
Murdoch actually brings up a good point here. Rambo is actually very particular about orders. Like, he actually understands chain of command and orders. And that might be the reason why Murdoch's life will be spared in a moment here, because deep down, Rambo understands the military order of things. And Murdoch's not lying. He didn't make the orders. He was told from people above him, your mission here is to do what happened. Like, Murdoch didn't come up with this plan on the fly. He was told by the people, the bureaucrats in Washington, what to do. He didn't make up this plan. He's just carrying it out as well. He's the representative of the people in Washington. So he's right. He's greasy, and we get it. He's kind of how he is. The actor that plays him, Charles Napier, did a great job portraying that. But the point is, he's actually not lying. That is true. He does not make up the orders, and he follows them just like Rambo does. So I think that might be what spares his life here.
I swear to God, I didn't know it was supposed to happen like this. It was just supposed to be another assignment. Mission accomplished. You know there's more men out there. You know where they are. Find them, or I'll find you.
Now, this is my lack of knowledge a little bit about the Vietnam War and the prisoners of war. I mean, it's been so long now that if there were any prisoners of war at this point, 2022, they probably have passed away or pretty close to it. But in 85, I guess, was there still prisoners of war that weren't accounted for? Was that a real historical issue?
You know, I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't want to say yes, there was and be inaccurate, but I would imagine, because we're 13 years out from that war, so I'm going to say that there was, because I know that John Rambo, when he filmed in Burma, it was an actual thing that had been happening. And I remember Sly writing that he was getting people to do the roles of the soldiers and the villains, and they were told not to be in a Rambo movie, or that's how serious it was. And with Rambo 3 in Afghanistan, to my knowledge, he always had these films written and to an accuracy of what was actually happening in the political and the military scene. So I'm going to say 2022, they'd probably passed on but like I said, I don't know 100%, but I can imagine there was. Just to go back, when he comes in and the way they filmed this, the simple things like pulling out the knife, unclipping the holder and just pulling out the knife, and the way they shot it, I'm sure they must have done it a few takes, but You see the knife come out, you hear it come out, and as it drives into the desk, and he just right beside him, and he looks over, and you can't imagine the fear that's going through his mind that he's holding this knife that could go right through him, and to slam it down in front of him. I'd be making a phone call to Washington immediately and saying, look, we've got some problems here. So.
That's great. Yeah, find them or I'll find you. Yeah, great sequence. Yeah, everyone loves that. Of course, Rambo's not going to stab them. Imagine if he actually filmed it where he stabs him through the head. That's how they filmed it in 85. Can you imagine if that was the ending?
I wonder if there's other takes. Like, I've seen like it's not necessarily a director's cut, but I've seen a version on, and I think it was on like HBO, and they actually had some scenes I'd never seen before in First Blood Part 2, but I wonder if they did alternate endings like they did in First Blood and where he killed him. I don't know if they workshopped that, or I'm sure Sly in his notebooks has 3 different versions for this movie just because, you know, that's the way he writes. And that's the one thing I always wanted to ask him is, did you write this any scene different? Did you write the ending different? Did you kill Murdoch in a different scene and decide not to? And I can't imagine the way Sly writes. He had one version and that was it. So it'd be interesting to see. Probably this worked the best for the film, but possibly because if he kills him, he may go back to prison.
The scene here is now, of course, we see the helicopter, the rescue vehicles. It's just it's such a cacophony of the helicopter is now fully engulfed in flames. Apparently, it's just why is it on fire like that right now? Like, it's so funny. They went that whole distance, landed the helicopter, turned it off, and now it's just completely engulfed in flames. Like, they just got out of there in the nick of time. Apparently, if the helicopter truly crashes, the helicopter heat, the flames and the helicopter fires are intense. None of these guys are wearing proper firefighting gear. The heat alone from these flames would, I know it's movie prop flames, but just, and they're attacking a helicopter fire with extinguishers made to put out wastebasket fires. Like, that is going to do nothing. The fuel and the magnesium that burns from the metal, you need. Yeah, anyways. And then we do see the fire truck there in the back. See the little water tank? They got a water tank truck there with the hose. So they're getting the hose ready on it, but you need other chemicals other than water. Copter out. Anyways, this is funny. And then all the POWs are all on stretchers on the pavement in the sun. Like, come on, guys, let's move them. But it's just to show the final events here of the helicopter. But I just love how now it's completely on fire. And Rambo walks right by it. Look at this guy. He go back. I'm sorry, go back. Look out the extinguisher. He doesn't even have it on. He doesn't have it turned on. He's just pointing the extinguisher at the fire. Look. Yeah. Hey, look, it's a fire.
Oh, it's great. Like, it makes no sense, right? Turn that thing on and let's put this fire out. So,
John, where are you going? I don't know. You got second Medal of Honor for this.
Okay, so Trauma comes. Sorry, Rambo's walking by the fire, slowly walk away. Trauma catches up. John, where are you going? To indicate he ain't sticking around. He's not going to wait for any officials to arrest him or anything. And Trautman supports that. Stand by for further adventures. And then Trautman says, "You're going to get a second Medal of Honor for this." And Rambo looks over at the POW who he saved at the beginning that was on that bamboo cross, and they give each other a knowing wave and nod of thank you.
Should give it to them. They deserve it more. You can't keep running, John. You're free now. Come back with us. Back to what? My friends died here. Part of me died here.
I love how Trautman's still trying to recruit John Rambo. Hey, you're a really good soldier. You're free. Don't you want to be a part of this again?
He never gives it up, right? At the end of this film, at the beginning of the next film, like, he's always trying to get him to come back into the military, right? And I've always thought that maybe Trautman's mind, this is what Rambo needs, because he can't adjust to regular life now. I can't speak for anybody that's been incarcerated or prison, but they have a hard time adjusting to a normal life. And I can imagine, I can't imagine having PTSD and how he's broken, and maybe he just thinks this would be the best thing for Rambo, to give him structure, to give him purpose. And he was so important in the military, and when he got out in civilian life, that he couldn't adjust, and he had these breakdowns. And I truly believe Troutman is his father figure and wants to bring Rambo back so he can guide him and take care of him and help him.
Good point. John needs real help. Like, I don't think putting him back in the military is going to give him any real help, especially with that PTSD and mental health issues. Mm-hmm. John Rambo is unhinged. He doesn't need any more military action.
Well, that's a good point too, right? So, I mean, it's both sides.
Now, this is a great little speech here. Sorry, I had the audio stepping on you there, Tim. It says Trauma says the war and everything that happened here may be wrong. So that's what he's starting to say here.
Wrong, but damn it, don't hate your country for it.
Now, that's a great point. Now, we're going to get... I won't pause Rambo's speech after this, but Trautman brings up a good point, and probably viewers might think this, who see this movie for the first time, like, does Rambo hate his country? Because he's angry at the computers, angry at the bureaucrats, angry at the whole situation with the U.S. at the time, where the government's not getting these POWs out. So there might be some indication like, does Rambo hate the U.S.? Is he angry? He doesn't want to fight for the military anymore, or what have you? Then secondly, Rambo's going to go into his speech about his love for his country, which is a bit of Sly and Rambo combined. And I know they're trying to replicate a little bit of the big, powerful speech at the end of First Blood.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Troutman is the only one that Rambo trusts, and I think he's going to hear him out. He's just given up on the military and what it stands for and what they tried to do here and cover everything up. And I think he's lost completely. And he's going to say what he has to say and just walk off.
Hey, I died for it. And what is it you want?
I want what they want. And every other guy who came over here and spilt his guts and gave everything he had once for our country to love us as much as we love it. That's what I want.
How will you live, John?
Day by day.
Okay, sorry, I love it, but at the same time,
Dramatic.
It's hilarious the way he walks with no shirt. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Rambo, you want a shirt before you go off into the wilderness?
I just recently saw an interview of Sly, and he was talking about his Rambo characters and in the desert and the jungles and running around with guns, no shirts on. And he says the military come up to him all the time and say, "Hey, Rambo," and they poke fun of him. And, Sly is always beating up on himself. And he'll say, the guys say, "This absolutely doesn't work. You run around half naked in the jungle with a gun. You can't do this," or the desert or wherever he is. I love this movie. I love this part. I love the speech, but it's so dramatic how he pauses in between every sentence. And a normal person would be so pissed. You'd be screaming, spitting, like there'd almost be a screaming match to a point, but it's a movie and we take it what it's for, but entertainment.
It's just funny how much we take it for granted. He literally doesn't have a shirt on. Like, this guy, can you just imagine a guy walking around the whole time? No, like, put a shirt on, dude. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're not in Venice Beach, California surfing for the day. You're fighting a war. Like, can you imagine, like, today's movies of, like, I don't know, Amazon Prime type films? I'm trying to think of the Chris Pratt one or whatever. Like, imagine if they had everyone like shirtless as they go into these big, like SEAL Team 6. They're all going into their missions shirtless. It's just funny. Louise is saying you don't want Rambo restricted by his garments. That's true. We can't have that. He's got to be completely free to maneuver. But I will say, in all seriousness, all joke aside, the point that Rambo, I mean, you're right about Sly's kind of acting there. It's kind of funny, the pausing for dramatic effect, cue the Oscar music, right? But what he says regarding, I want what they want, regarding, I want our country to love us as soldiers as much as we love the country. That's a great point. And soldiers even today, I'm just a silly Navy guy in the Canadian military. I'm nobody. I don't think I really receive hate, but actually that's not true. I remember one time I was pumping gas at the gas station, and obviously at the gas station, I was wearing my uniform, and I don't usually wear my uniform publicly because I don't, no offense to Canadians, but you don't get, anyways, this person, I forget what he said or whatever, but he yelled at me or scoffed at me or some sort of disparaging comment at me as I'm wearing my Navy uniform pumping gas. Like I'm some sort of warmonger type personality. Yeah, I kind of get it. Now, and I love my country in the sense of, like, of course I love Canada and I love our freedoms. I love that we have, and the funny thing is I will go to war. I'll put myself in danger's way to support that gentleman's hatred of me. He should have the freedom to not like the military. That is what a free country allows. You know, so I get that. So the freedom of our country, the U.S. and Canada in particular, or other Commonwealth nations, is that, yeah, like we actually get to live in a country and the freedom where you get to hate the government and publicly say that without being shot in the street. Let's just be honest, right? There's other countries where you pick a country, you can't openly hate the leader of the country and tweet about it or whatever. Like, you know, you can say what you want about our leader Trudeau, and I won't because I'm not allowed to, but I will fight for your right to say what you want about the leader. Good or bad. That's the whole point of freedom. So what Rambo's saying here is true is, hey, you know what? Why do they hate me? I'm actually fighting for the rights of democracy so you can hate us, ironically. It's a good point.
There's a scene in Rocky IV where his son is, that got cut out, where he's cleaning the robot, and he says, I want to learn how to fight. And Rocky says, I fight so you don't have to fight. And to me, that's the same thing as this speech. He's fighting so other people can live a free life in a free country. And you're right. People have the right to openly disagree, but at the same point, they shouldn't be yelling at you, pumping gas because you're wearing the uniform and you choose to serve the country. And personally, I thank you for your service. I thank any military person that does that for their country, so we can have a free life and choose to do what we want and vote the way we want and be open about the way we want. So I get his whole speech. Like, this is what he wants. And this is the first time it's broken down. The last time they had this heart to heart, it was all about his psyche. But now you're finding out this is what's driving him to the edge, is he's fought his whole life for his country, and his country is just looking at him and talking down to him and spitting at him, and all he's wanting to do is, you know, he'll die for his country. So a lot of people can't say that. A lot of people can't be like that.
Very well said. Well, that's the end of Rambo First Blood Part 2. Tim, thank you so much for joining the show and doing the season closer. You're going to have to make a decision for season 3. If you want to do the scene that you love the most, the shirt that you're wearing, or if you want to be the show closer.
And I just want to thank you very much for having me. I want to thank everybody who's listening in the Discord. And although I did not listen to last week, I trying to listen to the Long Road podcast and then the One More Round. And I love watching some of the behind the scenes stuff. And like I said, it's an absolute pleasure to be on here, and I'll pick any part of the movie, and like I said, whatever works best for you. And like I said, there's so many great things in Rambo 3 that I love. Even when he's getting the equipment and the guy says, I've never seen this before, what's this? And he says, the blue light. He says, what's it do? And he goes, it was blue. I love every part of it. I love the writing. I love the action, and this was great to be a part of it. We'll do a whole episode on the credits if you want. So I'm pretty easygoing, and whatever works for you. And again, thank you for having me. Yeah, Round 14 podcast, part of the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network, every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on YouTube. We've missed a couple shows, but normally we're out every week, and we have a new episode every week, and we talk Rambo, and we talk Rocky, and we cover other movies and comedies and Christmas, and sometimes we get off topic, but we love old movies and new movies and current events, and we're just happy to be part of this.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. And unfortunately, though, this season and this episode is over.
Nothing is over. You just don't turn it off.